Okay, here we go. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining for Hot Takes. Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Preetha. Yeah, Hot Takes and Horary. So let's start with an introduction about what this is. So I have my friend and fellow astrologer, Maria, is going to be doing the horary. I'm going to be doing the hot takes. Everybody submitted things ahead of time and we'll do as many as we can. But let's just start with introductions for people who don't know us. So I am Celeste Brooks. I'm an astrologer, coach, and intuitive, and I retired from my corporate career in sales, marketing, and business development to be a full-time astrologer. And yes. So I love astrology so much, and I am in love with this technique called horary. So I'm starting horary school soon, but Maria, my friend I met in class, is so good at this technique. We did an event together last year and we're doing another one tonight. So go ahead, Maria. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Maria. I have an astrology account called SOFIA Astrology. It's on Instagram and Twitter. I specialize in tarot readings as well as with horary, which are actually kind of pretty connected methods. I'm also studying traditional astrology as well, both the Hellenistic version as well as I'm currently studying with Stephen Forrest and trying to learn evolutionary astrology. But in terms of today's purposes, I would say if you're familiar at all with tarot, which I'm going to make the presumption that most people at least know the idea of you have a question and you can ask the cards and then you interpret, whether the symbolism of the card or the traditional meaning of the card, you can kind of get your answer. Horary is a similar technique, just using an astrology chart. So much the same. And forgive me if anyone is like, I already know this, or I heard you say this the last session, if we're lucky enough to have you twice with us. But the idea is that the whole premise of a birth chart in astrology is that the moment I'm born, I've breathed life and my soul has embodied into existence. And then that birth chart of that moment of where I am, both in time and space and location, becomes the chart for my whole life. And in much that same way, when I have a question that is birthed in my mind, let's say, and I ask a horary astrologer, is my boyfriend going to propose, or am I going to get this job I applied for, or whatever it is, that chart, that question takes on a life of its own and it has a birth chart. And then an horary astrologer will interpret that question similar in a way to tarot. So using numbers and the symbols and the locations, think of it almost like a spread, like you have past, present, future, let's say in a tarot spread. This is kind of the same thing, except we use planets and houses. So that's an overview. And I guess my question would be, so there was a lot of questions submitted and Celeste and I chatted before the session. So if your horary question was not answered, your hot take question will likely be answered. So as long as you're here, or even not here, if you submitted a question, I will either answer it for you through horary, or Celeste will do a hot take of your chart. So everybody gets a little bit of something. And then just another thing that, maybe now's the time, because I was going to kick it back to you, Celeste, for a second, but no, you know what? I'll wait. So Celeste, was that a good introduction? Or
that was a fabulous introduction. Yes, Maria, perfect. Yeah, so we'll do as many as we can. I don't know I can do all the hot take because there was a lot for other people, but one of the intentions of this is to help teach, some astrology to people who are really interested in it and using it to grow themselves, or if you want to maybe even have a career in it. So that is one of my biggest callings, is to be a teacher as well. So that is the intention of today. So if you don't get a chance to get your chart or question answered tonight, hopefully you'll learn something. And then I'm having 2 more events, so hopefully you will get something then. But everyone should get something out of this experience, is the intention. Yes. So yeah, Maria, I'll just turn it over to you to do the.
Okay. And also, please do feel free at any point to come off of mute and ask me any questions. If I know personally, I have a tendency of talking really fast. I have Mercury conjunct my ascendant, so I am a chatterbox. So I'm going to try to use this, like Celeste said, as like a tutorial, knowing that a lot of us in this room right now are either established astrologers or budding astrologers or astrology enthusiasts. So this is a technique that I actually, when I was starting to learn astrology, I came to astrology through tarot. And I had heard about horary. So I was trying to teach myself horary because I was like, well, I know tarot, I can just do this. And I could not. So I ended up backing into horary because I learned traditional astrology first, and then I learned this technique. So wherever you are in your astrological journey, I feel like once you kind of have a grasp on the planets, the signs, the houses, and aspects, because I think aspects are like key, then you can learn this technique. But even if you're still starting out and still trying to get a grasp on like the houses and what those mean, or the signs, or whatever it is, I still think like, I mean, I learned through osmosis, so it's like, well, it's probably not osmosis, but you know, once you hear things and it repeats enough times, you sort of get it. So once you're ready for horary, hopefully even later on, this technique will make sense to you, even if it doesn't completely right now. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and then I'll just share my whole desktop. So let me know through a thumbs up if you guys can see my screen. Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to just X that out. And we'll start with the first one. So what I'm going to do is, I don't want to like publicly out anybody. If this ends up being your question and you want to like add any context, please feel free, but I'm not going to say this question came from so-and-so, because I know this is also going, live on YouTube, and like nobody asked like, does my boss hate me or anything like that? But it's like, it's private information at the end of the day. So I'm not going to identify anybody, even if I do know some background information. But what I did want to do is like just go through all of the 8 that I selected. So even if you're not currently here, you can see it, on the broadcast later, or when you do catch it, the live stream. So, and like I said earlier, I know Celeste is going to do a very fine job of trying to get through everybody's hot takes. But so if you don't see your question up here, not to worry, you are not going to be ignored by us. So, okay, so the first question is—
And can I just pop in and say, I really encourage you, if it's your question, to chime in, because I think people really learn when they can hear the feedback of, oh yeah, this, and like, or give context.
Correct. But feel like, and I only say that to say no one is under any pressure to do so if you do not feel comfortable, because I understand. So this first question I received was the querent, and that is just some like language that I'll try to keep in mind, that I didn't set that up too much. But in horary, the person asking the question is called the querent. So the querent is represented by the sign on the ascendant and the ascendant ruler. So we have Virgo here. So instantly that tells us that the querent is going to be represented by Mercury. And so I'm going to have some things to say about Mercury in a second. The other thing that is very important in horary is the moon, because the moon is constantly, I think most of us know, like Saturn moves like, maybe half a degree a day, if that, and Jupiter's almost as slow. And then, Mars might get to 2 degrees over, or 1 degree over the course of 2 days. Mercury and the sun and Venus can be about a degree plus or minus a little bit, but everything's kind of slow. So the moon takes on super importance in horary, because the moon is like zipping through every sign in 2.5 days. So the aspects of the moon are really going to play a key role in horary. So instantly we want to see, what is the moon doing, and what's the moon going on, what's going on with the moon. So he was asking, the person was, the querent was asking about going back to school to pursue an MFA program in social work. So that is the 9th house, because just through knowing the traditional meanings of the houses, the 9th house has to do with any kind of higher education. So we look to the sign on the cusp of the 9th house. That brings us to Taurus. So now Venus becomes, my circles are getting bad because they're like overlapping each other. But so now we get to Venus. So in terms of the question of, am I the querent going back to school, or should I go back to school for social work being Venus? The first thing we want to look at is the moon, or sorry, is Mercury, which is the querent. That's who our person is. So that's the stand-in for our person. Are the moon, are Mercury and Venus doing anything to each other? And the answer is no, because like there's no aspect between them. Mercury's in Leo, does not aspect Venus in Virgo. So that is like one part that says no, but that doesn't mean the story ends there. So then we look at, okay, well, is the moon doing anything? So what's interesting about this chart, and I actually ended up, I know this person, which is why I identified them by gender. So my bad for doing that. I was trying to keep everything anonymous, but I actually spoke with him earlier today, and I don't know, I didn't check through everybody to see if he was on this call right now, but the thing that stuck out to me, and I'm going to get to what I judged on this chart, the thing that stuck out to me is that this late degree ascendant is like super critical in a horary chart. It instantly, and it's going to come up with some other people's too. So that's why I'm calling it out specifically right now as well, and why I wanted to start with this one. But it's instantly saying, so there's from 0 to 29, 59 in a sign, 0 to 30, let's say, of degrees of a sign, degrees of, let's say in this case, Virgo. So to be at 27 degrees, it's really late. And like, if you notice, like everything's at really late degrees. So he has Mercury, which is what who he's represented by in this chart, is also at a late degree. The ascendant degree is late. Venus and the moon, late degrees. So we just happened to be FaceTiming today because I was just catching up with him. And I brought this up because I wanted to bring this up in terms of like a teaching experience too. And he's comfortable with me sharing this chart, even absent of him. If I don't know if he's here again, but I don't know if he is, but I was like, did you already decide like what you were doing? And then like you asked the horary and then you already made your decision, because when there's a late degree ascendant, it's almost just like, it's just a warning sign. It's like something has already passed its prime. Something is like, and then everything is like, the Venus and the moon are separating from each other. So it's like, it would have felt like, yeah, like if they were just flopped, if the moon was at 24 degrees and Venus was at 26, I would have been like, it's a hell yes. Like, it's like the moon is going to Venus. You are going to the school, like, cause that's Venus is represented by the school. So I talked to him about it. I was like, the thing that's interesting is that Venus is still on the ascendant. So it was just like, so it seems like, you and school are all connected. Like there is something that is connecting you, but something in your question has changed since you first asked me this. Like, and like, also like you're about to make a big change. So you're at 29 degrees and you're about to dip into Virgo where you're exalted and you rule. And so it's like your situation is about to improve. So what is going on in this scenario, because it just feels like the horary is just signaling to me something's about to change, but I don't know if it's school. And then then we had a long chat about it, and school is still like a TBD thing because he doesn't know if I just want to make sure I'm being sensitive to privacy, but he just isn't sure like that's the right move for him. It is what he ultimately wants to do, but he's like wondering more if like he can pursue his goal of being a social worker in another avenue, not school related. So it's like, again, I think by the time I answered this horary, when he had asked this question, his kind of mind had already changed. And sometimes that can happen. So this is just a case where, and I don't, I just think it's like a little bit funny, and we'll see how it comes up in other people's charts too. So it's like school is like, I think he's like kind of lost some steam for the idea of going to school, but he's not lost steam for like the thought of it. So I think that's why all that stuff is still on the ascendant. So it's saying like, it's there, it's still on his mind, but like that verb, if you will, or that drive to do it has sort of passed its prime. So I just think that's interesting, but I do see a change in his situation happening anyway, because he, as Mercury, is about to like gain a lot of dignity at like astrologically speaking. So that was the answer to this one. So yeah, I don't know if, again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to stop me, but this was a funny horary to get, because it wasn't like a clear cut yes, and it wasn't a clear cut no, but it did describe the situation, I think, quite well.
So I have a
Yeah.
question. So what do you consider a late degree to after 27?
Anything after 27, yeah, is considered late
Okay.
degree, and an early degree, which we also have an early degree chart. Actually, the next one is anything between 0 and up to 259.
Okay, great. If the person's here, do you want to speak up?
I can take a quick look and see, but
No, that's okay. If they can just say something, come off mute and say something if they want to.
no, I actually don't. I don't see his name on the list.
Okay.
Okay, we can go to the next
Oh,
one. Oh, sorry.
there's a good question. So the location, Vivian's asking, what is the location? And it's your location, right?
That is a great question, and also something I should have set up too. So the question, and horary astrologers do kind of go back and forth on this. Like, let's say, Vivian, you called me or emailed me and you live, I don't know where you live, I'm making up that you live in the Bahamas because I just want to go there. But it's like, so if you live in the Bahamas, would I set the chart for the Bahamas? And the answer is no, because the question, because of the fact, whether you know astrology and you're just asking a fellow astrologer, the question doesn't take on life until it enters my brain. So once I read the question, understand it, we have a conversation back and forth, let's say normally about it. Oh, Vivian, you're in Connecticut. So then once it only got birthed, if you will, into existence because I am the person who understands it and is interpreting it. So I hope that makes sense. So it doesn't matter where in the world you are. It's only, the question only becomes a horary question that can take on life once a horary astrologer is the one that's absorbing the question. So that's the philosophy behind using my location. And it makes it, I mean, it also makes it easier. Oh, good. So people are reacting. So good. Because sometimes I'm just like, oh, I hope I'm explaining things okay. So yes, I hope that's clear. Richfield. Oh, wow. I just ran a 5K there. So yes. Hi, Vivian. It's nice to have like a local astrologer. We should chat afterwards because there's like,
yes, please. I would love that. Thank you.
I mean, I can now. I'm gonna like, oh, you know, that's not what everyone's here for. But yes, we should definitely chat. So yeah. Any other questions before we move on? I'm gonna go with no. Okay, so this next question is the opposite problem. And I shouldn't call them problems, but the opposite kind of thing. So this querent asked, you know, how and when will I meet my next love interest? So, you know, already we have instantly, I just noticed it's like, oh, we have a 1 degree ascendant. And usually that means there's something about this question that is like a little bit of like, it's not like, oh, and there are, and none of the charts do this today. So maybe I would go over that in another session in the future, but it's like, there's some like little blinking red lights in horary. And then there's some like warnings and like, we didn't have any big flashing, you know, move out of the way because the train's coming. This one was more just like a little blink. Anytime you see a late degree ascendant or an early degree ascendant, there's just something that it's like, what's this about? And like, what's going on here? But I'll get to what I thought just by reading this chart. So again, so we look to what this sign is. This is the sign of Taurus. So the querent is Venus. We always want to just see what the moon's doing. The moon's in the 3rd house in Cancer, so very strong. We want to look to the 7th house. So the 7th house is about a life partner, which is what she was asking about. So how and when will I meet this person? So that is, we're going to look to see what Mars is doing in this chart. And then the other thing is you can always look to whenever a person is asking about a love interest, we can also just take a look at what the sun is doing as almost like a last resort. If I could quickly change colors, I would, because I would want to make it a different color because we're not going to super focus on the sun. But it can factor in. So that's why it gets a little more simple.
I have a quick question. Yeah. Do you look at the sun regardless of the sign it's in, or are you looking at the sun because it's the 5th house?
No, good question. And I breezed over it. The querent is a woman, and in traditional astrology, and I don't necessarily subscribe to this on a, you know, my personal belief system, because like, but what you would do is and I know this parent, she's a heterosexual woman, so I feel comfortable answering about the sun or using the sun for her. But or if the querent were, you know, I don't want to get into like a gender or, you know, sexual orientation topic, but if you know, and as the astrologer, if they're willing to share, you know, what their preference is or what they're looking for, you can use on a traditional aspect, you can use the sun to stand in for males or people who identify as males, and then you can use Venus in the opposite way. So if Venus wasn't a factor in this chart, we could also look at Venus if it were reversed, let's say, or the parent was a different gender or was, you know, interested in women, or pursuing a woman or something like that. But that's and it's just a small thing. It's not really, and I don't mean gender theory is a small thing. I just mean in the horary chart, here's the thing, like you want to get, as the horary astrologer, and this is something I could like wax philosophical about for a really long time, you want to get to yes. And like sometimes when you can't get to a yes for your client, it gets like it's like, I mean, I don't know, maybe I have a natal Cancer moon. I'm just like, oh, I don't want to give people bad news. Like, it's just like hard, you know, and like, but it is your obligation and it is your duty that if you've taken on a horary chart, like sometimes the answer is like, no, like it's very likely like, when will I meet my partner? The answer could have been, well, we can't even answer this question because the answer is like, you're, at least right now, you're not, unless there's going to be a change, because there would be like maybe no aspect happening amongst any of the signifiers. So like, you know, it's not always likely that the answer is going to be a no in a question this broad, but it's, you know, but it's possible. It's possible I could get to a no. And then the reason you then would look for the sun, let's say, is because if I can't get you to a yes between Mars and Venus or the moon, then at least maybe the sun can help, you know? So it's like, you're just trying to get to like, it's not like, you're not necessarily trying to get to a yes, but you're trying to exhaust all your options before you have to deliver bad news to somebody. So the sun, in this case, let's say there wasn't any aspect, the sun would be saying, okay, well, maybe there's an aspect to the sun that can help out in this scenario. But that's why I did just want to call that out. And from a learning perspective, the sun like almost factors in 0 into this chart, except for the fact that it's on the 5th house cusp. And she's asking, how am I going to meet this person? So what I would tell her is with Venus, she's technically in the 6th, but she's about to, just because of the way the planets move, she's about to go into the 5th house. Mars is in the 5th house, which is nice because that's who she's looking for. There's no aspect because this aspect is never going to perfect. They met when they were in Leo, but Mars moves too slow to connect to Venus. So, I mean, again, one of those first things, it's like, okay, well, they're not connected. They're in the same house, but they're not connecting. Is there anything that is bringing them together? So that's where we're really happy because we've got the moon, and the moon is in the 3rd house and it is applying directly, the next step, to Mars. So this is going to happen. She is going to meet somebody, and the unit of time is actually pretty quick. You know, we want to look at the moon's at 2 degrees. Mars is really at 4 degrees, but you know, the moon's actually at 3 degrees too. So it's like 1 degree is separating them, you know, whichever way you look at it, whether you want to bump both of them up. So I would tell this querent, like, yeah, maybe it's like a unit of time with one. So it could be a week. I mean, it could be a day, but I don't think it's a day because there's a reason why I don't think there's a day, and I can get like geeky about these things and take more time than, you know, because there's a lot to get to, but they're in cadent houses. So it's probably a little bit slower than a day, but anything, a unit of time of 1. So 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, possibly a year. But it's relatively quick. I would say, I mean, I know nobody maybe wants to hear a year, but if you also maybe have potentially been single for a while, like, I don't think a year is all that bad either. And so, yeah, like the sun being on the 5th house cusp and just such a concentration of energy in the 5th house. So between the moon in the 3rd and all of this energy in the 5th, to answer the question of how, we've answered the question of if it will, which is yes. We've answered the question of when, which is a unit of time of 1. But the real question is like how. I would direct her to both 3rd house and 5th house topics because that's where the action is taking place. So third house, I would say, go out to your local bar, like, because the third house is anything in your immediate vicinity. So I don't know, would you meet somebody in like your neighborhood? Would you meet somebody in like the town next over? Would you meet somebody? I would feel like it's local. It's not going to be on like a trip or a vacation or anything like that. But it's also going to be something to do with like fun. So the fifth house can be, bars, it can be restaurants, it can be like sports. So like I would tell her to go look, I don't know, a baseball game if it's like, you live in a city or something, but anything to do with like socializing, people gathering together and like having fun. So yeah, that's what I would tell this queer, that it's going to happen. It's good news. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen relatively, I think, in a short period of time. And you're going to have fun doing it. The other potential is the third house and the fifth house are also sometimes associated with online and social media. So I could also tell her to, go on a dating app, but whatever it is, it's just people in her local area. So she's going to meet somebody locally. The thing that I wanted to get back to was that 1 degree ascendant was just like a little blinking light that I keep talking about. So I did also chat with this querent, and she has like, so one of the things about an early degree ascendant, and it's just like one of those things of like talking to other horary astrologers about it. She's asked this question before. So it's a little bit of, the chart just wants me to tell her like, now you just got to go out and do these things. Like you have to stop asking other like psychics and tarot readers and like astrologers about it. But it's just, it was a little bit of a warning. So I did ask her about it, and she has asked this question a bunch of times. And I'm like, well, the issue could be by talking to so many different people, you are confusing. Cause like, I'm going to say one thing, this person's going to say something else. So like, you gotta believe one person and then like go with that. So it's like, my advice is go out to local bars. So do that. But it's like, you got to listen to somebody, because if I'm telling you a month and somebody else is telling you, whatever, 6 months, or you're going to get confused. So it's like, stop confusing yourself. But that was my hunch. And I did turn out to be right about that. But another way an early ascendant can manifest is that there's not enough information. Like the situation, it could be like, I don't know, maybe to use it, since we're talking about dating, like I go out on a date with a guy, and then, or I haven't even gone out on a date with him. I'm chatting with him online, let's say. And then I immediately ask the horary, are we going to get married? And an early degree ascendant in that case would be like, slow your roll, Maria, like go out on a date first and see if you even want to get married to this guy. Like you just there's not enough information to answer this question. Like you got to chill, or you got to live your life a little bit. So horary is designed to also like talk to the horary astrologer. So in addition to trying to get to like yeses for your client, or to make them feel, like seen and understood, and that you are describing their situation, it is also cueing you as the astrologer. And the more horary charts you do, the more you're also seeing, it's not that I'm seeing myself in this chart, it's more just that there's just little signs that the horary is cueing me to pick up on, like something's going on in this situation, and like you should ask them about it. So with these two, I did happen, like when I saw the intake form, I did happen to know them. Everybody else, I don't know. So if you feel free, feel free as we go through the others to like ask me, or if it's your chart, to ask me about it. But again, for the sake of privacy, or if you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to do it in this live session, but do feel free to reach out to me afterwards if you want, and shed any insight, or tell me I got it all wrong, or tell me I got it all right, because I'd rather hear that. But so if there aren't any questions, I'm going to move on to the next one. So this question was, will I retire from this job? So again, we go to the sign on the ascendant, no problems here in terms of like early degrees, late degrees. This is a very fine chart, like in terms of like, nothing more going on in terms of like the person has already decided or has asked this 100 times before or anything like that. So it's 6 degrees Aquarius. That brings us to Saturn, who is right on the ascendant, which is very interesting. Saturn is very strong by sign. That's another thing you look for in horary. So like you want to look at the signs of the planets, which forgive me, I didn't really get into like in terms of analysis in the first two.
That's okay. We've
Okay.
got a lot to go through.
There's so much to go through. Yeah, I know. Like there's so many factors, and like I am trying to do this more of like breezy, and I don't know how breezy I'm being because like I get trapped in like talking a lot. Because I was just like, oh, Maria, just go through these fast. Like, you know, like people just want to know yes or no. Then like you don't need to go through belabor this. But
No, you're doing great. It's just you don't have to. Yeah.
I mean, yes, because then I think of different things. So anyway, a big thing is too, like, so the querent here is represented by Saturn. So you want to see what sign is Saturn in. And is Saturn in a strong position or is Saturn a little bit like struggling? So, you know, in those charts where the querent was ruled by Venus, Venus is in Virgo. Venus doesn't love being in Virgo, but here Saturn loves being in Aquarius. Saturn rules Aquarius. So that instantly just cues to me as the astrologer too, because sometimes you don't really know the person or the person asking the questions. In those two cases, I happen to. In this case, I don't. But the querent is in a really strong position instantly. So that already like tells me, it's giving me information about the question and the situation. So in terms of career, we look at the sign on the 10th house cusp, and that is Mars because it's ruled by Scorpio. So we look to Mars. This job it just suggests to me there's something about this job that's like maybe a lot of work because Mars and Virgo is all about hard work and like it's like a steady job. It's like a secure job, but maybe there's just like a lot involved in it that's like maybe feels a little rigorous potentially. So I would ask her, you know, or him or her, I don't really remember in this case. I would ask the querent, like, let's talk about that. But she wants to know, or he or she wants to know, sorry, I might just use she because I'm just putting myself in there. And so sorry if I misgender you, truly apologies. I'm just, you know, sometimes it's just, I'll just think of it as myself. So that's my error. If I do that and it offends anyone, I'm sorry. But we want to look at the moon. So what's the moon doing? So is the moon applying to either Saturn or to Mars? And the answer is very much so, yes. So we've got Mars at, 7 degrees, which is basically 7. You got the moon at 4. So yeah, you're going to retire from this job. It's going to be in a unit of time of 2. So whatever it takes to get from 4 to 7. So 2 to 3, I would say, because it's basically 7. So it would be like 2 or 3 months or 2 or 3 years. But in terms of like what I would have asked this querent if we had been chatting and it wasn't just like, like a fun, breezy horary session. And this was something where we really were like going to get into it. What I would have asked the querent is like, is there a reason why you think you wouldn't retire from this job? Like if you're worried about job security or like losing your job, and I don't know, this is me wondering why this person is asking this question. I would say, no, you're not going to be fired from this job. You're definitely going to retire from it. So if that was a concern, I would instantly like assure them that no, that's not going to happen. But then this is just me wondering why, like what prompted this question? Like what is bringing you to ask me this question? But not knowing that, with also Saturn so strong on the ascendant, it just says to me that like if you want security and stability and like that's what you're concerned about, you have Saturn very strong on the ascendant. You have the moon in a direct application to Mars. And yeah, like there's like almost like I would, if there was a worry concern about this, I would say not to worry because the answer is like a very strong, firm 100% like yes. And the unit of time in which it will happen is 2 to 3. So yeah. I don't know if the person who asked this question is here and wants to shed any light on the situation, but if not, I'm happy to move on to the next one too. So even if you're not here, you're going to retire from this job. So that's a good thing.
Very cool.
So the next one was, when will my financial situation stabilize? So this is a money question. So again, we go here, and I'm just going to make a big circle because Saturn just happens, because Saturn is a factor in this chart. It rules Aquarius. So a lot of the same things, like in this case, I would say like, there's more security, especially being represented by Saturn. I think Saturn is, it can speak to insecurities. It can speak to, so the querent being ruled by Saturn, even in the first question, it is why I wondered, like, is the querent worried about something? Because when you're represented by Saturn, there's worry, there's fear. Saturn represents kind of like those things that we feel insecure about. So it's just a question mark, but Saturn is strong. So I would, again, just want to assure the querent, like, you're more okay maybe than you might think. So your money, or everyone's money house, is the second house. So we look at the sign on the second house, and that's Aries. And so we look to Mars. So where's her money? Her money, or again, I'm sorry, I'm going to she pronouns and she, her pronouns, but her money is in the seventh house. So that's interesting to me. I'm wondering if the querent feels like maybe a partner is controlling their finances, or maybe in this case, the partner could be somebody who helps them with their finances. But what was interesting to me is in the last chart, the moon is what's connecting Mars. In the last case, it was the moon was in Virgo, but in this case, the moon is in a strong, or is strong by sign in Cancer. So it's all of these are positive indicators. So I would tell this querent, like, to have the moon in Cancer, to have yourself being represented by Saturn and Aquarius, there's like less to worry about than you think. The situation is going to stabilize because you have the moon directly applying to Mars. It's like, here's what we're looking at, just to get past a little bit of the minutes and make this go a little faster. We've got the moon at 1 degree. We've got Mars at like 3 or 4 degrees. So I would say it's going to, when will my financial situation stabilize was the question. So the real question here is when. First, though, with when questions, we have to establish if. And so this situation is a yes, this is an if it will. And the answer is yes, because it could have been no. And then when is a moot point. But here the answer is yes, it will stabilize. The answer is it's going to stabilize in a unit of time of about 2 or 3, just because Mars is pretty far close to 4 at this point. But so it's like 2 or 3 months, maybe 2 or 3 years, depending on how, unsteady you do feel. But, again, that would be something where we would talk about what feels, and it's up to the querent's judgment as well, knowing, like, again, these are assumptions on my part. I haven't spoken to the querent to know, like, if she feels like she's, in over her head, or if it's more about just like wanting to increase savings, but she feels steady as it is. Again, not my business unless this person was willing to share that with me. So she would be able to better inform me on what feels more right. Is it 2 or 3, or is it 2 or 3 months, or is it 2 or 3 years? It's really up to her. But I would ask her, or him or her, again, like, the placement of the planets is interesting to me. So it's like the 5th house of children. It's the 7th house of partnership. So I'm just wondering if it's like some situation with either kids or a partner where maybe either they can be of help to her, or maybe that is where her or maybe that's where her money is going, So it's like, maybe it's like an adjustment in terms of that. But there's good, this chart is all good news. So, there's just some things that I would ask her about from a counseling perspective in terms of like getting her to like the most clear answer. And that is something that if anybody ever wanted to ask me a horary question, that wasn't like just something on a quick intake form, in terms of like a teaching moment like this, like what we're doing right now in this session, it would just be more us talking back and forth. So I would be able to like answer a little bit more specifically in terms of like, what is it that you have to do? But I would definitely ask about anything 5th house topic related, as well as 7th house topic related, because I feel like that's the key, there's a key there. But just to answer the question briefly, yes, the situation will improve, and that's a good thing. So I know I'm halfway through, and I feel like I'm just talking so slow. When I sat here and told you guys I talk fast, I do talk fast. I just talk a lot. So I'm gonna try to breeze through these a little faster, just to make sure. Oopsies. What's happening?
No, that was really interesting. That's a cool topic. Yeah, if anyone wants to if the person's here and wants to comment.
There's a question about retrograde. Does retrograde not count? Yes, it does and it doesn't. It like factors into the judgment, but the truth is I'd be more interested in a personal planet that's retrograde. So if I was looking and let's say a person asked a question during a Mercury retrograde, a Venus retrograde, or a Mars retrograde, and Mars happened to represent either them or the situation, I would add more meaning to it because it's a little bit more rare and it's a little bit more personal. The truth is Jupiter and Saturn, which are only going to be the other possibilities in terms of what can represent you in a horary chart, they're retrograde like half of the year. It takes on a little less meaning when they're one of the significators or significators. It's a good question. It factors in a little bit. It helps me understand like what they're like, that it is something they're feeling insecure about, that it's like they're not feeling steady on their feet. But the fact that, okay, so like, for example, if somebody's represented, and I think somebody will be soon, by Jupiter doesn't have any real dignity in Aquarius. So that retrograde, the fact that Jupiter's retrograde takes on, it's a little bit more meaningful. Saturn retrograde in a sign Saturn rules, a little less. So it's less for when you, like, if you're interested in becoming a horary astrologer, it's more for you as the astrologer. It's less something to discuss with the client because like they don't really know or not care, but it's like, it's more just it's a signal for you. But yeah, I would look at it more just in terms of like planetary movement. Saturn retrograde to me is just less significant. Jupiter retrograde is less significant to me than if it was Mercury retrograde and that was the planet. So good question though. Okay, so this one is the person wants to know if they're going to get a full ride to an
Well, some people are saying they don't remember their question. So maybe could you say that their first name?
Oh, I didn't write down who wrote what, like who asked.
Okay. Okay, I will just say Nancy asked about the finances. So I'll look this up and just tell the person just say their first name.
Yeah, sorry, I don't actually remember. Because it was like for privacy reasons too. I was just like, if I knew your name, it would be really hard for me, like those first two where I happen to know them. It took like everything in me not to say their first names out loud. Cause I'm like, well, I don't know how they feel. So I'm not going to do it. So yeah, same way. I don't want to out anybody in terms of like, if you feel uncomfortable with this question being asked out loud. So MFA full ride. Querent is Mercury. We've got Virgo rising. We always want to look at the moon. And then we want to look at Venus because Venus is right. Oopsies, Venus is right here in the first house. And then we've got another interesting thing happening that I do want to talk about as well, which is one of the outer planets, because this is factoring into the chart in a way. So horary astrology was developed in like, well, there's cases that it was developed in like Hellenistic, like ancient Greek times. But it really got popularized and like all these rules and, you know, real like strict rigor, if you will, to this method has been attributed. There's been a couple people and I'm really breezing over the history because no one wants, I mean, it's long but the person who really popularized this technique was an English astrologer named William Lilly. And he was in the Renaissance. And so at that point in time, they didn't have telescopes. So they didn't know anything about Pluto, Neptune, or Uranus. So, okay. Nalene, I'm going to get to your question because that's a good one too. I'll try to go through this one quickly. But so the outer planets did not factor into their judgments. They wouldn't have known what Pluto was. They wouldn't have known what Uranus is. So they never would have been able to like know where Uranus was in the sky because they didn't even know it existed. So that's why we only use the 7 traditional planets. But we are living in modern times. We do know the planets, like they're in our software, they're in, and so it's like, it is something where aspects to it might not matter, but they do make their presence known. And in this case, the planet is making its presence known. So we are going to talk about it. So MFA full ride. So we've got the querent being represented by Mercury, and we have school being represented by Venus. So first thing before we even look at what the moon is doing, we just want to see, are the significators in contact with each other? And the answer is no, they're not. But that doesn't instantly bring us to a no, but it's just saying, okay, so it's not going to be an aspect because Mercury can't apply to Venus because they're in an inconjunct sign. So there's that. But do we have any aspects from the moon, let's say, to Venus? And the answer is we do, but it's far, but it's in orb. And so we've got the moon at 12 degrees in the same sign as Venus, and that's at 23 degrees. So my math is, oh my God, I'm going to embarrass myself in front of everybody. What's that? That's 11 degrees. Yes, it's 11 degrees away. And it's a long orb. And so it just means it's not going to perfect instantly. And then that's where Uranus comes into play. So we know that Uranus is a sign of like shocks, disruptions, expecting the unexpected, or I didn't think that was going to happen. So I would caution, or not even caution, but I would tell this querent that it's like, yeah, you're going to get into school, but I don't know if it's going to be exactly what you think. So maybe it's not a full ride, or maybe they're going to like do something not shady. It's not about shadiness, but it's like they're going to give you something that you weren't expecting. Maybe that's something unexpected is good because Uranus can always shock us in a good way. But I would just say, like, be prepared that it's like, maybe you might have to fight for that full ride, or maybe you might need to go back and forth with them. Or maybe you're going to get a full ride, not to the MFA program you're thinking of. It's going to be something else. But I would just say, watch out for something that kind of throws you for a little bit of a curveball. And again, curveballs are curveballs, and that's the nature of Uranus. Celeste, you will know, like, it's hard to predict Uranus transits because anything can happen. And it's like, sometimes they're good. And like, I mean, we're not here to talk about my personal transits, but I had a good Uranus transit like just recently. And I was like, oh, well, you surprised me in a nice way, because sometimes Uranus doesn't. So I would just tell this person, yeah, like I would just wait. You know what I mean? Like, wait before you're definitely going to get into an MFA program. Is it going to be the one you're thinking of? Is it going to be a full ride? I don't know. I would prepare for some kind of detour to come your way that you're not expecting. But it's still like, I would chalk this one up to a good news scenario. So, but there's just going to be something that is surprising to you about it. And even if I was William Lilly in the Renaissance and Uranus wasn't here and I didn't know about that, I would still say yes. He would give you a yes. William Lilly would give you a yes, but the long application. So the moon is like, what did I say? 11 degrees away. Still, it's long. You know what I mean? There's still, it's like not the fastest, it's direct. It's not going to hit anything else before it hits Venus by traditional aspect, but it's still a long one. So it's like, it just might not, maybe the shock is that it doesn't go as quickly as you think, or maybe there's more time before you get to your yes, or there's just something. So I would just say, that's what I would counsel you on. It's just not going to go quite the way you expect it to go. But ultimately, if your goal is to get into an MFA program, then the answer is yes. So that's a good thing. So just prepare for something a little bit of a curveball. And now Nalene, who is asking great questions. So if two people ask, so this is the challenge of this method with Celeste. Normally, if someone was asking me, when people ask me horary questions, rarely do they come in at the same time. Like, someone will ask me a question in the morning, somebody will ask me a question in the afternoon. And then also, like, I'm probably, I'm a little bit bad about emails, but it's like, I don't read them right away, so it's like, it really depends on when I read them. So when Celeste gives me the intake form from this, like, it's almost just like, I like have to close my eyes, and then I'm like, not even joking. And then I just look at the first thing, that I see, and I just try to like only focus on that one. Cause it's like, if I read the other ones, I'm like, oh, it's like, I shouldn't read the other ones because then I'll have to answer them at the exact same time. And I don't want to give everybody the same chart, but at the same time, I know that it's like, this event is coming up on Thursday. So I have to answer all of them pretty quickly. So it's like, I just pick the time, like before I start work, during my lunch break, maybe at night. So it's like, yeah. So this one was like first thing in the morning, I like was awake and I'm like, all right, let me answer this one before I get to my work day or whatever. So normally it's a little bit more organic than that. But yeah, if two people ask a question at the same time, they wouldn't necessarily get the same answer because this person is asking about school, but let's say somebody else was asking a question about love. So then we're looking at Pisces, and then we're looking at Venus doesn't even matter in this chart. We're looking at Jupiter. And so, then we're looking for Mercury and Jupiter. Are they making an application, or is the moon making an application? So it doesn't necessarily mean they'll get the same chart, but they wouldn't necessarily get the same result. If I had two people at the same time asking about an MFA program, they would get the same answer. But as the astrologer, that's my bad. I shouldn't answer that. Well, I would have to turn down one of them from answering that question and ask them to go to somebody else, because that's just cloudy thinking. Like, they're not both getting the same answer. So I just think it's a little rare that somebody would ask me the same question at the same time. So, and that's why I said the whole thing about closing my eyes, because in this case, two people did ask an MFA question this round. But I happened to just read them on different days. So there is a slightly different result. So it's not that you turn off. I mean, I don't know. I hope I'm interpreting your question right. I just more think like, I just want to be it's not even about ethical, though there are ethical considerations. I just want to make sure the person is getting an unclouded judgment. So it's like, if I read this question, I'm reading for this person, and now to answer the exact same question for somebody else, it would just be a warrant. I wouldn't feel right doing it. So I would direct them to another horary astrologer. It's more that. Just because I want to make sure they're getting a personalized answer. But the chances that somebody's asking the same exact question are rare. So, okay. So astro career. This person asked a question of, will my astro career take off? And so there's a 2-degree ascendant, which we remember means something about this question is in a premature phase. So it's asked early, there's not enough information. Maybe this person has asked this question to another psychic or astrologer or tarot reader, potentially. Again, this is something I would ask them once I was breaking this down with them one-on-one. But we're going to just keep that in as astrologers, and I'm talking astrologers to astrologers here. We're just keeping that in our in our minds, that is something that the chart is telling me to look at or to think about. So the querent is represented by Jupiter in Aquarius, and the house of, she's talking about an astro career. So that is the 10th house. So we look at Mercury, and then we look at the moon. So there's a lot of interesting things happening. I really like this question. So first thing we want to do before we're going to talk about the moon, because in our last cases, the moon is really what was connecting everything and making things happen and getting us to our yeses. In this case, we have a direct application. So we have, and not only that, but we have them directly applying to each other because Jupiter is moving retrograde. So normally it's like the planets are all like, everyone's in forward motion. You have a slow or faster moving planet like Mercury, who's like catching up to Jupiter, and it's going this way. I hope that makes sense. But because Jupiter is retrograde, they're actually meeting each other. So it means they're both applying to each other. So it is an opposition though. So that adds something to this interpretation. So we've got Mercury, which is the astrology career, and it is coming to the querent in an opposition in a unit of time of about, like, I mean, it's really a half degree, but it's, let's call it a degree. It's 27 to 28. So I would say, yeah, it's going to happen. Like your astro career is going to take off. I would say though, and you've got, and then, so we're going to talk about this in a second. You also have the moon directly on the midheaven, which is, you know, the point of somebody's career. So it's like, I mean, I would know that this parent really wants this, that they're excited about it. Like this feels right. And not only that, it's like they're primed, ready, emotionally ready. This is like, it would just show me that this is what this person wants. What I would say though, and this is a conversation, and this is something where it's like, you know, again, as the astrologer is just want to ask about this. And the unit of time, which is, you know, 1 degree or about, you know, could be even like, let's want to say 6 months. But let's just call it like a year, you know, because we want to get like, just to keep it to a round number of 1. So it's a unit of time of 1. Is it a day? Probably not. Is it a month? Maybe. Is it a year? You know, is it a year? I don't, you know, that feels right only because, and again, this would be through a conversation with this astrologer who, you know, wants to know about their career. I would just say the 2-degree ascendant to me says, you know, and with the moon in Virgo, which is like a sign about, you know, being studious and studying, like maybe there's just like more like where are you? Like, I would just ask, because I mean, who am I to say? Like, they could know everything about astrology, but it's like, it's either that you feel that, is there like, are you feeling like you don't know enough? Because then I would tell them, like, my advice to anybody, an astrologer, and this is advice for anybody on this chat too. It's like, and it's advice I got that I think is super helpful, is like, if I waited until I knew everything about astrology before I started talking about astrology publicly, I would never have gotten to talk about astrology, because like, we all are, like, we're all lifelong students. Like, everybody is learning astrology, even people who are teaching astrology. Like, that's like the wonder of it. And I know, well, Celeste and I talk about this, like, when we're like waxing poetic about astrology, but that's like the beauty of it. So I would just talk to this person, because I'm not getting, what I didn't get from this was, I'm so arrogant that I am not ready. Like, I just think I know everything. So it's just like, and I'm not, and that's the prematureness of the question. I'm just getting like, is there something that makes you feel like you're not ready to do that? Like, are you trying to just arm yourself with more information? Are you trying to feel like, oh, if I take one more class, if I do one more thing? So again, this would just be a conversation in our, and I call it counseling, but it's really just like however they want to talk, like back and forth on email, whatever, get on a Zoom and like chat about it. But that's just what I would ask, because it's like the significators are applying to each other. The moon is on the midheaven, all great signs. So I would just say though, I would just want to know, like, what's this about? So, there are so many types of astrology, Nalene. So it's like, I only know, I mean, I'm only studying Hellenistic and evolutionary, and then I'm learning this technique, because this is like of horary, and like, and then there's electional too, which we've talked about. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different kinds of astrology that, like, yeah, if I waited to know everything, we would not be having this session right now, because it's like, it's just, there's no, no one will ever know everything there is to know. So this is like a 2-part question. And again, like, it was just funny how often this happened. It's like a late degree ascendant. So again, just my instant little, hey, what's going on here? So the querent is represented by Jupiter. This is a love related question. Thanks, Preetha. And so the querent is here. So the first thing with any question like this, the full question was, when will I fall in love and get married? So I would have told, and I think that's part of what the 28 degree ascendant is. This is a 2-part question. And first we have to establish if, before we can get, like, if you're going to fall in love, before we're going to get to like when you're going to get married. Like, when you're going to get married is like, we're going too far. Like, we have to just answer one question at a time. And then like, if and when you meet this person, then come back to me and we can talk about when you'll get married. But first we have to meet them. So I'm only answering one part of the question, but I kept the married part in there. I mean, I know it's hidden. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing. It's hidden back here, but I just wrote that to cue myself to just mention why I'm not answering this part of the question. So I think that's what the late degree ascendant is telling me, or potentially, I mean, not or, and. The other thing I would ask the querent is like, are you doing anything currently to like fall in love? Like, are you on dating sites? Are you going out? Are you telling your friends you're single? Like, because there's just something maybe not inert, but like potentially inert of like, or like, there's just something about a 28 degree ascendant that's cueing me as the astrologer, like something's not moving forward. And maybe it could be that the querent hasn't like taken a step yet themselves. Not sure, but it just would be worth asking them. So we look at Jupiter, and we've got a couple interesting things. So the question here really is when will I fall in love? So I've got great news. And the answer is, again, we want to find that yes. So you've got Mercury, who is the partner that's coming. That's in Leo at 24 degrees, and it is applying to you because you're represented by Jupiter and again, it's that mutually applying situation. So also a great thing. So, and it's a unit of time of 4, but not only that, you've got the moon in Leo when I was answering this question. So you had the moon in Leo also applying in a unit of time of 4. So you will fall in love, and it's going to be a unit of time of 4. So I would say like 4 months. I don't think 4 years, but I mean, it's possible. But I would say like 4 months, 4 weeks, but I again would just like, not counsel you that with this 28-degree ascendant, it's just telling me that there's something that like, I would just like, again, I don't know if you're on on the webinar right now and you want to answer, but I would just say, I'm getting like there was like maybe it's more was on the intuitive side, but there's just something that you need to do. Like maybe a little bit of going online or going out to bars with your friends. And I know it's pandemic and I don't know what people's comfort level is with that, but it is about like putting yourself out there, telling your friends to hook you up with somebody. There's just something about the 28-degree ascendant that would be worth discussing one-on-one. Okay, so now we're at an hour, and Celeste, I'm so sorry. We only have one left. I went through as fast as I could, but
no worries. Yeah, no worries. I'm doing more seminars, so if somebody doesn't get their hot take today, they can come to another one. No.
Okay, this last question was, the querent asked this question. She's currently in school and is also wanting to know if she will get a new job while she's in school. So she's represented by Mars, and instantly I know this querent is working really hard because we've got Mars and Virgo, and maybe feels like it's just got a lot going on. Like it's not a lack of capability. This is telling me very capable. Like Mars is like a go-getter, Virgo, hard worker, but just like definitely it fits the situation like to a T. We've got the moon at 28 degrees, and then we've got, is she going to get a new job? So the job is represented, we've got Virgo at the midheaven. And so that means Mercury is going to represent a job. So we want to see, is a job coming to the querent? And the moon right now, when I asked this question, the moon is at 28 degrees. And so it is technically, the moon is not helping us in this case because the moon is what we call void. It's not making any aspects before it switches signs. So we're not going to really factor in the moon into this scenario, but we've got good news because we've got Mercury applying to Mars. But the thing I would say to the querent is, so you've got Mercury at 29 degrees of Leo. That is a very auspicious degree. That is, it's the sign of the fixed star Regulus. So, and not only that, but it's like Mercury in like 20 zodiacal minutes is about to dip into Virgo, where it's going to pick up a ton of dignity. And then it's going to be not only like domiciled, but exalted. So this job is coming to you. It's going to be a great job. It's going to be a good job. It's going to help you. Like, it's going to feel like it's something that helps you stabilize, and it's within orb. So like once Mercury gets to like 0 degrees of Virgo, it's going to be directly applying to Mars, which is all great, good signs. So yes, this job is coming, but the only thing I would say to you, and it's going to be a good job, there might be just a little bit more of a waiting period, just then in terms of times of like, normally when I'm giving everybody else their timing and saying like, oh, it's like 1 degree or it's this, and it's going to be 1 month. It's going to be 1 this, it's going to be 1 that. In your case, what I would say to you is Mercury, there's something about Mercury that needs to change. So it's like that sign change is important and it's critical. I'm not saying that you're going to have to wait forever, but there's going to be something where something needs to shift first. So I don't know if that is something that you can help facilitate as well on your end, but it's like, maybe it's like looking in a different like job location, or maybe it's a signal that it's like, I don't know. And I didn't ask this, so I don't know if the querent currently has a job, and like, it means that they have to leave this job in order to get a new one. And that could just be what the signal is. And I would ask them, and like, we could end the conversation there. It's more just like, yeah, you need to let go of this job. And then the next job you get is going to be even more awesome. And it's going to come within a unit of time of about 8. Or I would ask if there's something in their job search that they can do a little bit differently, because the thing is, Mercury is not in Virgo. Mercury is still in Leo. So there's just something where there just suggests like that process of needing to change signs can suggest delay, can suggest or could suggest that there's an adjustment needed on one person's part or the other. So this would be a conversation where, once I gathered more information about the querent's personal details, what their current job situation looks like, what their current job searching situation looks like, I would be able better to understand. But it's like, just from a purely like archetypal, symbolical perspective, that's what a sign change means. It means yes, and the application. So yes, it's going to happen. You will get a new job while in school, but there's some either delay or there's some kind of adjustment necessary. But everybody got more or less good news, which is a good thing. And I know that there was like a ton more horary questions that came in that, I mean, these 8, I literally thought, you guys, like, I was like, oh, half hour. I'll just go through these in a half hour. Like, it'll be so fast. And I did not do that. I took more than double time. So I apologize. First,
Apologize. That was great.
No, but like, 1, I didn't get to everybody's questions, so I feel bad about that. And then 2, I apologize for like breezing through 8 of them. And so I hope, I know, Celeste, you're probably more familiar with everyone's astrological, like where they are in their journeys. So I hope that like everyone was able to follow along. But if you do have any questions that you want to ask now before we get to the hot takes, I'm happy to answer them. And if not, then if you feel like you want to give me feedback on anything you heard afterwards, you can feel free to email me. If you want a horary question that I didn't answer, we can talk about that too. So just let me know. But yeah, definitely would love to answer anybody's questions if they have them. But if not, we can get to the fun stuff, which is hot takes. So
well, that was great, Maria. Yes, I got an intuitive hit about that last one.
Oh,
so how about redo your resume for Mercury and Leo at 29 degrees? Like maybe it's the way they're presenting themselves, and that redoing their resume maybe could help speed.
That could be it too. Yeah, there's just something that like some adjustment necessary is all like really was being cued to me. So yeah, I would, if that person watches this and wants to know, I'm happy to, I'm happy to like brainstorm what that thing is. But I would just say there's some delay that's on it, like that's factoring in here, but the answer is still positive. It's still good. Okay. So 28 degrees ascendant, something everyone would look into when plugging into their chart. No, just for horary. Like a 28 degree ascendant on a natal chart is not anything that would like necessarily catch my eye. But for horary, if there's anything from 0 to 3 degrees, and if there's anything from 27 to 29.59, it's just one of those like, there's some astrologers horary astrologers who would just be like, I'm not even reading this chart. I don't subscribe to that. I think you can definitely read the chart. It's something to talk about with the client. Like, well, it's your signal that like, I would never just be like, oh, I'm not answering this question because you asked this to another astrologer, or 27 degrees. Like, I'm not going to answer this question because I don't think you're on a dating site. Like that's like helpful. I mean, for me, it's like, it's helpful information to help the person. Like there's like, cause like what William Lilly, the guy I mentioned, like he has these like literally like, it's like chapters of like rules, like don't answer the question if Saturn is in the first house, don't do this if this is that, don't do this if, and I'm just like, I mean personally, and I'm luckily I have teachers who also agree, it's just like, no, it's just like something that you would like talk to the person and like, so because it's like definitely from like a more counseling perspective, but it's like, who wants to tell somebody something, bad news, or who wants to disappoint somebody? And it's just like, in that case, like, yeah, you are going to meet somebody and fall in love. The unit of time is 4. That's great. The 28 degree ascendant to me is saying like, there's something you need to also do too, though, something you also need to adjust. So it's just adding into, from my perspective, the interpretation. It's not to like scold somebody or tell them I'm not going to answer their question or anything like that. It just helps them know, now that you've given me this, now that you've told me the weather, here's like the tools that you should carry, like, do I need an umbrella or do I need some sunscreen? That's how that's maybe a bad metaphor, but that's how I look at it. So.
That's so cool. Yeah, thank you so much. So one thing that I did as we get to
your intuitive hit,
the hot takes. No, I said I think she needs to redo her resume. That was my intuitive hit. Okay. So now I'm going to remove your spotlight. Okay, let's see if this works. Where I don't know why it's not showing me, but anyway, so I think this is a good way to like show a practice, Maria. So there was a question that Rachel had asked, is mold in our house making us sick? So I wanted you to go through this with me a little bit to show people like how you approach it. So I would approach this as, so Rachel's asking about her and her husband, and I think it's interesting that it's a Gemini ascendant. So their Mercury, let me see if I can pull up the annotation. Let's see. Is this, I want to do, I'll just do a circle. So their Mercury in Virgo.
Yes.
And so this was a question. So they're asking, is the mold in their house making them sick? So it's like a health question and a house question.
Yes. So you're looking at the cusp of the 4th house, you're looking at the cusp of the 6th, and you're also looking at the moon.
Okay. So it making them sick would be represented by Venus and Virgo, and Virgo is a health sign. So I would say that this is definitely answering the question, but the house is the sun.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, you want to look in health questions, because like the house is important here too, but in health questions, what you want to look at is who's stronger. Is the querent or is the disease or the sickness, illness stronger? So you've got Jupiter. You've got Mercury representing the querent, and that's, I mean, can't get any stronger than that. Mm-hmm. And then you have the sickness being represented by Venus, who is not happy in Virgo. Like that is the sign of her detriment. So this is like instantly, it's part of the analysis too, but it's good news because it means you can overcome this illness. This illness is not strong enough to beat you. So that's instantly a good thing. I think it's also very interesting that the moon is in the 6th house, because I think that just adds testimony to the fact that the moon as co-ruler of like either what's about to happen next or co-ruler of you, the querent, there's just a lot of yeses in this chart, but Celeste, I'm sort of giving it away. I think the good news is you're stronger, but you want to look for like the moon's next application. So
the moon's next application will be a sextile to the sun.
Yeah. So there's a couple things happening. So the answer is you're looking for the yes, you want confirmation. So is this sickness making your house sick? Is it coming from the house? And the answer is yes, it is. The good news is you are stronger than it. So it's not going to you'll win. You know what I mean? Like you're going to beat the sickness because you're stronger than it. But yeah, they're definitely, I would definitely look into what you can do. The horary chart is not necessarily showing us that, because that really wasn't what the question was. If it's just about confirmation and testimony that is this house making me sick? The answer is yes. And now you know that you're stronger than it. So you're definitely there's something in the house that needs to be fixed. The mold needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and they asked, will they move or buy a house in the next year? But since the house is making them sick, I would think they better get moving.
Yeah, and then also, so moving would also be represented by the 4th house, and that application from the moon to, it's a double question, and some horary astrologers will take double questions. I personally just like to keep it simple, and I usually, if someone has a double question, I tell them to ask me later. But in this case, since you as the astrologer took a double question, so we can answer it. The answer is yes. I would say, again, the unit of time is about 5. It's actually directly 5 because they're both at 26 minutes. But yeah, maybe in 5 months. I don't know about 5 years is possible. But I would say you can and probably should, if the house is causing a mold damage situation and making you guys ill. But either way, you're going to come out victorious. So.
Okay. Well, cool. Well, thank you.
good to see them as, it's good to see the querent. I mean, I know it's a we question because it's making us sick, but it is good to see that you are stronger than this yucky mold. So
Yeah. Yeah, but I would say get to moving.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Maria. That is great. What is your email? Someone asked.
Oh, Maria Sophia Astro at G. Oh, well, I can just, I'm like, and
Want
like,
to drop it in the chat?
why am I saying it out loud?
Well, somebody might be listening, won't be able to.
Oh, okay. The Maria Sophia Astro at gmail.com.
Okay. Perfect. Great. Okay. Now we're going to do some, okay, I'm going to make you not a co-host because maybe that'll stop it from spotlighting you.
Oh, I thought I removed my spotlight. Did I not?
It's still showing you in spotlight. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There, I'm up at the little corner of the top. Okay, now we're going to do a few of the hot takes that people ask for. So you got to be here to get your hot take, and you're going to have to speak up. So is Kirsten here? Kirsten V from Texas. Okay, or Isabella. D from, okay, D Johnson or Maria D or anything. Maybe people signed up and weren't able to come. Okay, let's see. Or Rowena, is Rowena here? Okay, let me do this. I'm going to share my screen. And let's see, if you see your name here, I think I saw Nat. Nat B, are you here? If so, come off mute.
I think that's me.
Okay, we're doing you. Okay, is that you from the Bronx?
Yes.
What time were you born? I don't think you didn't put the time in. Do you know what time you were born? You went on mute. Natalie, we can't hear you.
3:29 a.m.
Okay, 3:29 a.m. And the date is right?
Correct.
Okay. So here you are, and let me see. I don't think you had a. Natalie. Put in.
3:29 a.m.
Let's see. Oh, you want to know about your life? You want to know about romance? Okay. So yeah. So you're a sun in Libra. So you are here to partner. You're a moon in Taurus. So I love this. So your sun is ruled by Venus, as well as your moon is ruled by Venus. So like being in partnership is really important to you. And but maybe sometimes I would ask you if you don't, your sun and moon are in conjunct, which means that they are quincunx, which means that sometimes they're out of alignment. So you can think about your wants and your needs and how they can sometimes not be in alignment. And we are in a full moon, a new moon in Leo. So I want you to really think about what you really want in a partner. I want you to do a new moon ritual in case you haven't already, where you write down what you want and kind of like work to call it in terms of timing. Let's see. I'm gonna look at.
Can I say something I noticed?
Yes, please.
So you have a 22-degree descendant at in Aquarius, and Jupiter is going to station on that degree for like 6 weeks. And so I think that's like really auspicious in terms of this, like you have a lot happening in your 7th house with Saturn's there. Saturn's the planet of commitment. And then Jupiter, I know this because I have a 22-degree sun in Leo, so Jupiter is going to be opposing that. But when Jupiter turns direct, he is going to move really, really slow. And it's like rare to like just see that. So Jupiter is like a bringer of gifts and luck and all of that. So I would.
He's bringing all those gifts, Jupiter, right? Slowly.
I think it's a good time for your love life coming
I
up.
love that. Oh, fantastic. I love that. Now let's look at timing. And I am going to, and you're, let's see. Oh, look at this. And your progressed moon. So the progressed moon speaks to like emotionally, like what you're feeling, what you're going, what's in focus in your life. And so your job has maybe been in focus, but your progressed moon is right. The North Node is right on the progressed moon. So that as well tells me that this is a really good time for you, because the North Node talks about our karmic path and where we're going towards. And yeah, let's look at, so yeah, so this timing of October looks like a really good month for you.
That's my favorite time of year.
Even sooner. What did you say, Maria?
It's my favorite time of the year. October.
Oh, that was that. Yeah.
And
so yeah.
And that is also when Jupiter's going to start stationing and like all, because I know because I'm a 22-degree Leo sun, so that's why I'm like, and so,
I really like that. So yeah, it looks like you could be meeting someone pretty soon. I'm going to pull you a card to see.
I love that.
Any more insight into that?
Because I'm so focused on work. Like, you know, I feel like with career, it's like what you make of it, you know, aside from, you know, what you're destined to be a part of. Like, I feel like that's just like something that we just go with. I feel like love does definitely require some effort on your part, you know?
I agree.
Yeah, but right now is a really good time for your career. You are focused on it emotionally, but yeah,
I was late here today, right?
What'd you say?
I said, you can see that I was very late here today.
Oh, no, I didn't know that, but that's all right. Yeah. You could go back and look and see anything you missed. But the card I pulled for you is Go the Distance. So very interesting. So I want you to really do your new moon ritual, to really dig into what you're really wanting from a partner and to call it into yourself. So I want this next relationship of yours to be one that will go the distance. So, but I want you to put it out into the universe, what you really want. So that's that. Yes. So good. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah,
great.
Like you better bring you that present because I feel like Jupiter's coming.
Yeah.
I need that season. I need that season to slow down. The gifts.
Yeah, and I want Jupiter to bring you presents too.
That's right.
I know. I do too.
That's right.
But yours is, I mean, mine is my 6th house, but yours is on the descendant. I mean, that's pretty bang on. Like seems like that's major partnership energy.
Very cool. So, and Alicia, I see you here. Do you want to come off mute? I hope that
Yes,
helps.
hey.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Very good. I'm trying to look and see if you had a question here or
I don't remember if I had a question.
you did not. So is there anything particular you're interested in knowing about your chart or?
I guess I was just curious to see if anything stood out.
The first thing that jumps out at me. So happy birthday or happy birthday to
Thank you.
So a sun in Virgo, a moon in Sagittarius, and you are a Scorpio rising. So yeah, I love, very interesting. So Virgo and Sagittarius are signs that square each other, even though your moon technically is not in a square with your sun. So what can happen with that sometimes as a conflict between the wants and the needs, because Virgo wants to like take in information and constantly order it, bring order to chaos and organize things. And Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, just wants to expand and just wants to take like a little kernel of the story and just like build it into this bigger truth. And so have you found that with your emotionally, that conflict in your life?
Yeah, I mean, more so recently, I've kind of realized, or someone mentioned to me if they wondered if it was my Sag moon, where I've been starting a lot of projects and like not finishing them, which bothers me. But at the same time, it just right now, I just can't seem to, I guess, focus on finishing.
Okay. So Sagittarius and Virgo are both mutable signs. So you have a lot of, and you have Pisces in here. You've got a lot of mutable energy in your chart, and that is the energy of wanting to have constant change. So there's three different modes. There's cardinal, fixed, or mutable. So let me look at, so are you finding this is something that's been more of a problem recently, or it's always been?
More so recently. And it's almost like I remember having a period of this, like it's been years, where I did cake decorating, I did knitting, I was like doing starting all these things, and we just kind of deserted them.
Yeah, well, you like that. So when you have a lot of mutable energy, you have to look into different ways in order to maintain things or get that fixed nature to them. So I would say like one thing that could maybe be helpful for you is to like on your calendar, Virgo loves to work with the calendar, like put timing, like put things on the calendar for times where you're going to be doing something and force yourself to stick to it, because that you have a lot of energy that wants you to just do a lot of different stuff. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I did notice, I think when like Mars went into Virgo, I seem to get a bit more on track. So I've been doing better this past like few weeks of, getting stuff done, taking care of business. And so that's good.
Well, really use from now until the end of the month to like really try to dig in and get stuff done, because both Mercury and Mars are in the sign of your birth. And yeah, so that will really help you maybe focus. But let's just a quick look at your solar return since it's so close to your birthday. Let's see. Okay. Do you know where you're going to be for your birthday? What city?
Same city, same place.
What is
my
it?
house?
Yeah. What is it?
Huntington, West Virginia.
Oh, yes. Huntington. Sorry.
Oh, I guess I can do natal. Oh, sorry. I don't have to type it in. Oh, I started typing it in. Okay.
Yeah.
Then,
West Virginia.
that's right. Okay. So for people who aren't familiar, a solar return is a chart that you cast for the moment the sun comes back to the place it was at the moment of your birth. And it gives you a snapshot of like what your year is going to be like. So yeah, so there's Pisces rising. So are you working on anything creatively?
Kind of. I took crochet back up. I don't know if that's what you mean, but yeah, I've started to crochet again.
Okay. And then
my career, I'm a graphic designer. So
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So in your career, you do creative stuff all the time. Okay. Your sun is in your 6th house, and the 6th house is the house of health and daily life. It also can speak to your day job. So what you do for work. So do you expect to have like a year really focused on work?
I mean, yeah, it's pretty busy right now. It's going to be busy probably throughout the rest of the year.
Okay. So, and this is from this year till, this birthday till the next birthday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I would say you're probably going to be very focused on work. I want you to really pay extra attention to your health and health habits, just
Mhm.
because the sun is in the sixth house. So,
Okay.
It could
work.
be about like adding rigor too. So like I know as a mutable person myself, like sometimes like nailing things down. So with the sun in the sixth house, it could just be about creating like a routine that like I know it sounds so like, oh, who wants to create a routine? Especially when you're mutable, like we're not cardinal, but it's just like or fixed even. But the thing that I did want to say, because I noticed it, is that you're having a Jupiter return in 2022 because you've got a Jupiter and Pisces in your fifth house. So I was also going to ask you about creative projects. So I would look at that, like maybe
Okay.
you see, like right there. So it's like when Jupiter gets back into Pisces. I'm just curious if anything happened recently in the summer or between May and July, fifth house topic wise, because the other thing I was going to say is like kids potentially. But
Oh,
like
no.
so and that's fine. So it's funny because like just like I think as an intuitive thing, I was just like, oh, I think this is about creativity because also you've got such a strong Mercury.
Oh, I mean, the only thing, honestly, that's going on right now is I'm trying to decide if I should stop freelancing. Because, like, I have a day job where I do it, and I also freelance, and I think I'm just burned out. And so thinking about doing it even more is kind of stressing me out.
You did have like the Venus Mars conjunction taking place on your Venus in the 10th house. Just wonder too, like, I don't know, it could be a start of at least like, what is it, 2 years, Celeste? A new 2-year cycle in a career? I'm looking at,
Her solar return, right?
oh, I wasn't thinking about her solar return. I was just thinking about
Okay.
Venus and Leo. And then like when Venus and Mars were conjunct, it was like what, 18 degrees? So, I mean.
Oh, 19 degrees. Yeah.
So you just have, your chart's interesting. You're having so many returns. You're having Mercury is going to return, Mars is going to return, your sun is going to return, your Venus just returned, and now you're going to have a Jupiter return. So it's just a lot of fresh starts, I think, are on the way.
Okay. What about the only other thing that I was curious about was like the Chiron. That's in Aries. Has that already passed for me? Like the Chiron return?
Chiron
Because I'm in, it's
your Chiron's at 24. So no, that has not happened. That's not going to be for a while.
okay. Good.
Let's see. Yeah, so yeah, like what Maria was mentioning, there's a lot of fresh energy for you to start things.
It's unique because I was like, wow, like that's a lot of returns in a short period of time. So
let's see.
It usually just means fresh starts.
Yeah.
Or new phases, new cycles beginning.
It looks like you're not going to have your Chiron return till about 2024. So you've got
okay.
Chiron moves really slowly.
Okay, good. Because I was like,
no, honestly, I just have like started Chiron returns. I literally just had a conversation about this, honestly, with like maybe within the last week. They're good. Like, it's like a time where, you know, I think like the Chiron like squares that we have like leading up to like throughout our lives are hard, Chiron oppositions, but like when you have a return, it's like potentially, you know, like we all have to do the work. And I think as people who are into astrology, it's like we're all trying to do the work, you know, we're all in various stages of it, but it could mean like a big healing moment versus like anything scary. Like I feel like all the scary stuff is like our lives up until that point, because it's hard. I get it, you know. But the Chiron return, I don't know. I mean, again, this is just not, it's a hot take, but it literally just had a conversation about it. I actually think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I had my Chiron return and I thought it was intense, but really healing.
Okay, well, I won't feel as, you know, nervous about it.
No. Well, one thing that's interesting is you have Saturn at your IC. So, Yeah, so you are gearing up for a new, so Saturn's been moving down to, now it's at the lowest part of your chart, and now it's going to come up. So has anything changed about your home or your housing situation or your?
No, not with my housing. No.
Okay, because where's your natal Saturn? Let's see. Yeah, but anyway, you could be in like, oh, you have Saturn in Cancer, or any kind of family or ancestry.
Well, my father passed in April.
Oh, that's that. Sometimes when Saturn crosses our nadir, it's like something around some kind of, it could be like a passing of someone, like that's like literal. My father died when Saturn was at my I see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So you've got some new starts. So hopefully that's helpful to you. And
Yes. Thank you so much.
And creativity. Great. Well, maybe we could do one more. Are you okay to hang on for one more? So yeah. So for me, Natalie, you can go to my Snip feed if you want to leave a donation. It's on, you can go see it on my Instagram page at Astrology by Celeste. I don't know, Maria, do you have a place where people can give a donation if they'd like for you?
I don't, but I mean, you can always follow me on Instagram if you want, or Twitter. Twitter, I'd say less so, but just because I sometimes just tweet about nonsense. But I would say Instagram, if you want to follow me there, you can. But
yeah, tell them your handle, because you have an underscore or a dash or something.
no, oh, I do. You're right. I would not have said it. It's, hang on, I'll just put it in the chat.
Okay.
That way everyone can we can get to that last question, and we can stop making it all about Maria.
Yeah.
All I've done is talk for like 90 minutes.
No worries. Thank you. I appreciate it. And it's so nice having your insights too on the seeing other things in the chart.
I think we should offer that as a service to get two astrologers, and then Maria will just jump in and say something.
Let's see. Is anyone else who's out on there on the list here? Let's see. Oh, Maria S. You want to come off mute? Are you there, Maria S? Okay, I don't know. Maybe she walked away from the.
She just wrote in the chat that she's too nervous.
Oh, okay. Don't worry. Do you still want me to talk about your chart? You don't have to come off mute. I can just give you a couple things. Write it in the chat. Will you tell me what she says, Marianella?
She says yes, thank you.
Okay, I'll just tell you a few things. Okay, great. So the first thing that jumps out at me, oh, so you're Leo sun and moon, and you were born at the new moon. So I think this new moon is really an opportunity for you to really start something new. There are these larger cycles of the moon, so where you can just work on things within a month, but there's all these larger 2.5-year cycles. So this new moon was at 19 degrees of Leo, which is relatively close. It's in your 7th house. So your 7th house of partnership. So I don't know, you're born in 1993. You're probably still young. I don't know if you're married. I'm going to just assume you're single. So if you want to call in a partner, or if you want to call in something from your current partner, that could be something that you use this new moon or set intentions around. This also could be about creative projects, or if you want to maybe think about, when you're going to have children with your partner or things like that. Leo is all about bringing joy to the self. So set intentions about like some kind of larger project where it's going to be bringing joy to yourself. And then you will see in 9 months, something come to fruition around this story. So yeah, that's the first thing that popped out to me about your chart, is having this Leo energy and having this opportunity for this great new moon for you there. And there's still time to work on it. And let's see, your Saturn return is not coming for.
Oh, she says she's single, interesting, and that she's been struggling with anxiety, and she hopes she can work through it.
So struggling with anxiety. So when I hear anxiety, I look to Uranus. And you have, it's wide, but you have, okay, I think I looked at your chart before we started, so I remember now that you had asked about that. So something that really popped out at me about your chart, that you asked about, like, how can you work, like, get over anxiety? You are in like this phase of your life where you've got your progressed sun and moon are both in the sign of Virgo, and Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and it can be a nervous energy can be a symbol of this. So I can see it in your chart that you're struggling with what you're saying. That makes sense, that you're struggling with anxiety. It's also an 8th house thing. So this is about psychological processes. Something to think about is, are you getting any therapy? I think this would be something for you to be really helpful to you, for you to get some tools on how to manage your anxiety. I mean, you may need, help from a professional about that, but you have something in your chart that symbolizes that. You have this, what is called an quincunx between Mercury and Uranus. It's really wide, but it may be something that you can help work through with a doctor, as well as there's a book called Calming the Anxious Mind. I want you to buy that book, and that has all kinds of tools to help you calm your mind. But
She says she just started therapy.
oh, good. Yeah. It's yeah, I think that's going to be tools to really help you. But just know this too shall pass. I mean, it's going to be the progressed moon moves about a degree every month. So it's going to be in your 8th house for a while. But I think once, I think things could potentially, there could be transits where things start to lighten up for you. I think now that we're in Virgo season, it might be a little intense. But Maria, do you have any comments on that? You have a Virgo rising.
I do have a Virgo rising. Not on that. So is she having her nodal opposition? Is that what's going on too?
Yeah, she's right in her nodal opposition. Yeah.
And then also, I mean, your birthday is like 2 days after mine. So I'm trying to like do your solar return in my head, but you're going to have Venus in Libra. That's like really nice. So that's like a whole year. And so like Venus in Libra can see your natal Venus too. So I know you said you were single. So that's like, I think that's like an auspicious thing, just in terms of like, Venus is all about like love and like, all the nice things that all of us like. So from a solar return perspective, I think you're going to have your moon in Sag too, right? Because mine's in Scorpio and it's like yours is 2 days later, but maybe it's in Capricorn. I don't know. We'll see what Celeste brings out. Yeah, I think those are good things for being for singledom too.
Yeah. So yeah, your solar return, the sun is going to be in your 10th house. So work will be in focus. That's really nice. Venus in the house of friends. So get out there and social. That's also great for finding love, if that's something you're looking for. And Uranus being in the 7th house, that could be you could meet someone unexpectedly. Mm-hmm. I like that. I like that. And
like also like Celeste, I'm curious if from your perspective, I don't know if I would have gone there, but because Maria mentioned feeling anxious, would you put that in terms of like this? Oh no, this is the solar return chart.
Oh,
What-
let me go back to her chart.
If you don't mind not going back to the natal, because I wondered if like maybe anxiety would have been, I mean, a nodal opposition is like usually like, it's like a significant moment in everybody's life, right? You know, like, because we get the nodal return at 36, we get the nodal opposition. When do we get that?
She's about probably 27, I think,
Okay.
or 8.
Yeah, and it's 11, and it's 11.5, right? That's where,
Yeah, she's in her nodal opposition, like exactly. So what I tend to see that as,
She's turning 20. She said 28. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so she's like, it happened recently. And I see the nodal opposition as a time where things come into your life that give you some kind of mirror about things in your life, because it can be people, it can be events that help you see from your defaults how you want to move forward in your forward. So like see from your habitual things, your routine things. You have your South Node in Gemini, which also can speak about the anxiety, because Gemini as well is ruled by Mercury, and like this opportunity. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to work on figuring out how you can like step back and look at the bigger story in things, rather than have things so close to your face with that. Sorry, I'm kind of, my words aren't coming to me well.
just
But
from my perspective, like hearing you talk about it as a mirror, I was like, oh, I love that. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else that you think about that, having the North Node in Gemini and the opportunity to bring in new facts and look at the story differently? I think your therapist could potentially represent the North Node, like in a way to help you move past that and help heal the.
Yeah, she says the mirror is so hard, so many things to work on.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we all do. We all like don't.
Not all of us.
Yeah.
Not alone.
Yes, just know you're not alone. And yeah, I think the more you learn about your chart, the more helpful it will be for you but I think it's a matter of finding tools, and you're going to have your Saturn return either next year or early the year after. So there's going to be a lot of evolution for you, where you're going to bring in all these new tools and structures and things to help you, grow past that. But I pulled how funny. I pulled this card by the book. And remember how I said earlier that you should read that book, Calming the Anxious Mind? So I think this card is saying to you to buy that book. So go on Amazon, buy that book. Perhaps there will be tools in it that will help you be able to manage your anxiety better. Yeah. So hopefully that will help. Anxiety is a hard thing. I've had issues with it in the past, and yeah, I've really worked with tools for grounding. Exercise is so helpful for me, and I love an Epsom salt bath. Like there's a lot of energy, it can help you discharge it. There's all sorts of things, but I think the fact that you're in therapy is the best thing. Yeah, that's what you'll get really help for that. So. Great. Well, I hope that was helpful. I'm sorry we didn't get to more, but I'm doing another full moon event, so you can come to that. That's going to be on the Saturday, the 20th, next Saturday, not this Saturday. And then I'm doing a coaching event where like we'll do celestial coaching. So we could do stuff like, especially about career or any of these things, love or what have you, where you can have a question and we can look at the chart and do the hot take on that. So let's see. Gallery. So does anybody have any questions? Now is a good time to come off if you have any questions about techniques or what have you. Yeah, please follow both Maria and I on Instagram if you're on there and you're not already, at Astrology by Celeste and
Maria Sophia Astro or _Astro.
yeah, Maria has the best memes, and I love your new feature where you're doing the horoscopes all the time.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah, she's such an amazing writer. She writes for a bunch of magazines. So yeah, so thank you everyone for coming. I hope you enjoyed this and learned something new. And yeah, I hope to see you again for another one.
Thank you all for coming and all your great questions.
Yeah, wonderful.
That was so fun. Thanks.
Oh, good. So good to see you, Marinella.
Oh my God, I signed up for the next 3 when I got the email.
Okay, we'll do your chart for the full moon.
Oh yeah, because I just looked at my birth chart and I realized the day I'm having my solar return, I'm having my Venus return. So
Nice.
Oh, well, look at that. That sounds good.
extra party for all my friends. You're all
There
invited.
you go.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.